Is there anybody out there that would like to tell a joke? And here comes John. Come on up, John. People online didn't hear that, and maybe it's okay. Come right up to that one. Yep. Center stage.
Center stage, I want to fall off.
No, use the mic over here.
Well, I think I can speak. Can you hear me just like I am?
No, they can't hear you online.
Oh, mic's on. Okay. You can hear me now.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. One afternoon on Sunday, Easter Sunday, by the way, this dapper gentleman, it's a beautiful day like today, nice and warm. He hops in his convertible, puts the top down, goes for a little cruise down country lane. La-di-da-di-da. Next thing you know, he looks up. He's not paying too much attention. Hop, hop, hop. Out of the bushes comes this big bunny. Smack! Man, he smacks it. That rabbit goes down hard right on his nose or his eyes. And he said, oh my God, what have I done? What have I done? I've killed the Easter bunny. Oh, no, I've killed the Easter bunny. Well, moments later, a blonde comes up. She, in her cute little sports car, she says, oh, mister, what's the matter? He says, oh, I've killed the Easter bunny. I'm going to ruin Easter for all the little kids from here on out. It's going to be terrible. She says, She looks down. Yeah, he's down all right. She goes back to her car, picks up an aerosol can, comes back, all over the Easter bunny. Man, in a couple of seconds, Easter bunny hops up, looks around, waves at him, both of them, and starts hopping down the road. Goes down about 20 yards, turns around, waves again. Hops down the road, 20 more yards, turns around and waves again. And this goes on and on until he goes over the rise in the road, out of sight. And the guy looks at her and says, what have you got in that thing? He said, let me see. And she says, well, it says right here, hairspray revives dead hair and creates a permanent wave.
Anyone else? Wendy, go ahead. Come on up.
As you might guess, my joke is about music. What's green and sings? Elvis Parsley.
Come on up. Yeah, you. Come on.
Why did the monkey go on the tree? 'Cause he wanted the banana.
This is very out of character for me. But my 4.5-year-old great-granddaughter was shopping with her mom at Walmart. And when she wants something, her mother will simply say, well, let's take a picture of it. And she saw some shoes that she wanted. They were kind of iridescent, and they were very pretty. And her mom said, okay, we'll take a picture of this, and maybe the Easter bunny will bring them. Well, the next morning was Easter, and sure enough, there were the shoes. And she said, I didn't know the Easter rabbit shopped at Walmart.
Yeah. He promised.
Y'all get to hear my bad jokes every week, but I have one that I couldn't find a context for. So I had a dream that I went to heaven, and I had there were these clocks all over the place, and I tried to figure out what they were, and none of them moved at the same rate, and I could not for the life of me figure out what they were. So I asked St. Peter, who's the traditional tour guide in these stories, I said, "What are these? What are the clocks for? Why are they all weird?" He said, "Oh, those aren't clocks. Those are sin meters." I said, "Oh, that's interesting. What do they do?" He said, they show how often people are sinning. And I said, of course, well, I need to see the ones from the people in church. And of course, I had to check mine first, a few times a day, depending on the day. Kristen's was, that's none of your business. Randy was like every hour or so. And I wanted to see Doug's. And when we got to the spot where Doug's was, it was empty. There wasn't one there. And I went, what's going on? And Peter thought about it, and he went, "Oh, that's the one that they took to the office. They use that for a fan."
Thank you. Well, oh, we got one more? Okay.
Why did the chicken cross the road? Because he wanted to get to Chick-fil-A.
Well, with all that, you don't need to hear from me. So, well, here we are again. Welcome to the third installment of Holy Humor Sunday here at Jackson's First Presbyterian Church. If you're a first-time visitor in the sanctuary or joining us online for the first time, welcome. I hope you enjoyed the service. Now, as Sharon read in our Old Testament lesson, there is a time for every season, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance. Lent is over. Filled with the joy of the resurrection of Jesus Christ, it is time to enjoy life again. Jesus Christ is risen. He is risen indeed. The second Sunday of Easter has been referred to as Holy Humor Sunday, or New Sunday, or Bright Sunday, or as Pastor David calls it, a Sunday I don't have to write a sermon. Now, Holy Humor Sunday is not new. In fact, in the early church, the Sunday after Easter was observed by the faithful as a day of joy and laughter, with parties and shenanigans to celebrate Jesus' resurrection. It was commonly held that Easter, God had played the ultimate joke on the devil by raising him from the dead. So on the Sunday after Easter, parishioners and pastors would tell jokes and have fun. Congregations and pastors would often play pranks and practical jokes on each other, drench each other with water, sing and dance, which may explain one reason why so many pastors take vacation right after Easter. According to some sources, the observance of Bright Sunday, or Risus Passalius, as it is called in Latin, nothing takes the fun out of something like translating it into Latin, was actually outlawed by Pope Clement X in the 17th century. But since I found nothing on Pope Clement's Wikipedia page regarding this, apparently was not a cornerstone of his papacy. But after all the solemnity of Lent and Holy Week, who doesn't need some raucous laughter, or at least a few chuckles to remind us that God indeed created us to be a people of joy? A resurrection faith is certainly one filled with laughter. So, let us begin. Jewish son tells his father he is moving out. Son returns a year later and tells his father he has converted to Christianity. The father is upset, calls his friend who is also Jewish. "You won't believe this. My son David moved out for a year and came back and told me he is converting to Christianity." His friend says, "You won't believe this. My son Benjamin moved away for a year, and when he came back, he converted to Christianity too." Both men were upset, and they called on their rabbi and explained what happened. The rabbi said, "You won't believe this. My son Joshua moved away, and when he came back, he told me he converted to Christianity too. The rabbi suggests they call God and tell him. The rabbi tells God that all 3 men had sons who moved away and converted to Christianity and don't know what to do. And then God says to them, "You won't believe this." A pickle walks into a bar and the bartender says, "Hey, you're a pickle. What are you doing here?" And the pickle says, "Well, for starters, I'm celebrating the fact that I can walk." What do Alexander the Great and Winnie the Pooh have in common? Same middle name, yes, okay. Okay, so what is the speed of dark? Give him a sec. Okay. An elephant was walking through the jungle when he saw a turtle sitting on a log, and he said, "Hey, you're the same turtle who bit me 45 years ago," and he kicked the turtle, and it flew 100 feet and bounced off a tree and into the river. And the giraffe said, "Wow, you've got quite a memory." And the elephant said, "I have turtle recall." Man walked out of the bar and got into his car, and a policeman came over and said, "Sir, your eyes seem to be bloodshot. Have you been drinking?" The man looked at the police officer and replied, "Officer, your eyes seem to be glazed. Have you been eating donuts?" The biggest problem with the gene pool is that there are no lifeguards. How many optometrists does it take to change a light bulb? 1 or 2? 1 or 2? You hear about the guy who got the left side of his body amputated? He's all right now. Man asks a young boy, "What does your father do for a living?" "Oh, he's a magician. He cuts people in half." "Do you have any siblings?" "Yes, 1 half brother, 1 half sister." Adam and Eve were naming animals. Adam saw a big creature with a horn on its face and said, "What shall we call this one?" "Why don't we call it a rhinoceros?" "Why?" "Because it looks more like a rhinoceros than anything else we've seen so far." 4 brothers left home for college, and they became successful doctors and lawyers and prospered. Some years later, they chatted after having dinner together. They discussed the gifts they were able to give their elderly mother who lived far away in another city. The first said, "I had a big house built for Mama." The second said, "I had a $100,000 theater built in that house." The third said, "I had my Mercedes dealer deliver an SL600 to her." The fourth said, "You know how Mama loved reading the Bible, and you know how she can't read anymore because she can't see very well? I met this preacher who told me about a parrot that could recite the entire Bible. It took 20 preachers 12 years to teach him. I had to pledge to contribute $100,000 a year for 20 years to the church, but it was worth it. Mom has just to name the chapter and verse, and the parrot will recite it." The older brothers were impressed. After the holidays, Mom sent out her thank you note. She wrote, "Milton, the house you built me is so huge. I live in only 1 room, but I have to clean the whole house. Thanks anyway. Marvin, I am too old to travel. I stay home. I have my groceries delivered, so I never use the Mercedes. The thought was good. Thanks. Michael, you gave me an expensive theater with Dolby sound. It could hold 50 people, but all my friends are dead. I've lost my hearing. I'm nearly blind. I'll never use it. Thank you for the gesture just the same. Dearest Melvin, you are the only son to have the good sense to give a little thought to your gift. The chicken was delicious. Thank you." New evidence has been found that William Tell and his family were avid bowlers. However, all the league records were unfortunately destroyed in a fire. Thus, we'll never know for whom the Tells bowled. Got to have a groaner in there once in a while. Hey, they found a big pothole near the police station. Police are looking into it. After a very long and very boring sermon, the parishioners filed out of the church saying nothing to the preacher. Toward the end of the line was a thoughtful person who always commented on the sermons. She said, "Pastor, Today, your sermon reminded me of the peace and love of God." The pastor was thrilled. "No one has ever said anything like that about my preaching before. Tell me why." "Well, it reminded me that the peace of God, because it passed all understanding, and the love of God, because it endured forever." Man dining at a seafood restaurant asked for a lobster tail. Waitress smiled sweetly and said, "Once upon a time, there was this lobster." I tried to organize a hide-and-seek tournament, but it was a complete failure. Good players are so hard to find. A ventriloquist was performing with his dummy on his lap. He's telling a dumb blonde joke when a young platinum-haired beauty jumps to her feet. "What gives you the right to stereotype blondes that way?" she demands. "What does hair color have to do with my worth as a human being?" Flustered, the ventriloquist began to stammer out an apology. "Keep out of this," she yells. "I'm talking to the little jerk on your knee." Now, Toby's mother stops to watch her son Johnny read the Bible to their cat. "Isn't that sweet," she thinks. But an hour later, she hears a terrible racket. She runs out the door to find Johnny stuffing the cat into a bucket of water. "Johnny, what are you doing?" she asked him. "I'm baptizing Muffin," he replied. "But cats don't like to be in the water." "Well, then he shouldn't have joined my church." Nothing refreshes my memory of what I need at the grocery store like coming home from it. Why do sharks live in salt water? Because pepper water makes them sneeze. In ancient Galilee, a fisherman and his wife were blessed with twin sons. They named the boys Amak and Awe after deceased ancestors, as was the tradition. The years passed and the boys grew. The day came when the fisherman said to his sons, "Boys, it is time you learned how to make a living from the sea." They provisioned their ship, said their goodbyes, and set off for a 3-month voyage. The 3 months passed quickly for the fisherman's wife, yet the ship had not returned. Another 3 months passed, and still no ship. Finally, a whole year passed, and the grieving woman saw her husband walking down the lane to their house, alone. "My goodness, what has happened to my darling boys?" she cried. The ragged fisherman told this story. "We were just barely a day out to sea when Amak hooked a great fish. He fought long and hard, but the fish was more than his equal. For hours they wrestled upon the waves without either of them letting up. Awe and I did what we could do to help, but eventually the great fish started to win the battle, and Amak was pulled over the side of our ship. He was swallowed whole, and we never saw the great fish or Amak again." "Oh dear, that must have been terrible. What a huge fish that must have been." "Yes, it was. But you should have seen the one that got Awe." Amen.